Hi folks, I'm the Bald Guy, and this is Bald Guy Basics. So you want to get into firewood, or you're looking to expand in firewood. If you're going to burn wood, you're going to have to address the issue of splitting your wood. Now, if you're just starting out and you're on a tight budget, this is where you start. And if you could see up close, you could see this one's nicked up. I've used this one a lot of years, and the reason I'm wearing a belt brace here is not just because I'm fat, but because I've worked my back pretty hard and I'm just not capable of doing the things I used to do. So when we're talking equipment is everything, and I've gotten to the point in my life where I'm going to use my equipment to make my work as productive and as easy as possible. Today I'm going to talk about some basics. If you're going to swing a mallet, an axe, a wedge, I really like these with the flange side, the flare sides, because they do two things. They not only cut into the wood, but they use what we used to use a wedge for. It has the wedge built in. But every piece of wood is a little bit different. What the maul or the axe or the splitting axe that works for one style of wood may not work for another. In the barn down here behind me, the shed, I've probably got 5 different implements like this. And each one of them works a little differently. One of them is better for one kind of wood, one of them is better for another. And by the way, when people, so many experts try to tell you what wood is best to burn. Friend, I'll tell you the best wood to burn for heating your home, the wood that you can get. The big thing in wood, you're looking at a guy, I'm in my upper 50s. We've burned pine wood here in the East in my lifetime for some 50 years. My father, who was born in the just about the first quarter of the 1900s, my dad burned pine his whole life. So now we're approaching 100 years. And before him, my grandfather was born in 1895. Guess what? He burned pine too. You can burn just about any kind of wood as long as the wood is dry. With any wood, you're going to need to clean your chimney. It's a whole other issue. Today, I'm going to talk to you about if you've got the funds and can do so, investing in a hydraulic splitter will be a great advantage to you. It used to take me hours to split a load of wood. Not because I lacked the strength in my upper body, but my back just would not hold up, and I pay the price for the whole next day. So about 2.5 years ago, I started with a used hydraulic splitter. I bargained with a fellow, found him on Facebook Marketplace. You'll hear me use that source a lot. And I forgot what he wanted for it, but I bargained him down to $400. And it was the best investment that I had ever made in terms of my splitting firewood. Well, that particular implement, it came off the back of my truck and it was destroyed as I was hauling it to a work site. So I bought a little more modern one here, and there are a number of things that these will do, things that I want to show you that are important. If you're going to buy one, price is certainly the first consideration. You see these just metal pylons here. Those metal pylons, when sometimes this wedge is going to get stuck into a piece of wood, and when it comes back, the old splitter I had didn't have these guards in place. And that meant I had to figure some way to pry, to pull that stuck piece of wood off because it stayed stuck. These metal pylons, when the cylinder retracts, will automatically extricate the wedge from the wood, and you don't have to risk anything. Another thing that I love on this one, as with all of these machines, as you engage the lever forward to extend the cylinder, you have to stand here and hold it. That means you can't just engage it and put your hands down here because that could get you in trouble. However, the newer hydraulic machines have a feature. When I hit it back, I can actually I put my tractor behind me and I stack the wood directly onto the tractor so I don't have to bend over. And I can be retracting my cylinder while I'm stacking wood, pick up my next piece of wood and put it in place. I have saved myself several seconds of standing here and holding this thing in place. So the features that they have are very important. The engine that you use is also quite important. Now, forever in small engine applications, the Briggs & Stratton has been almost universal, not quite. But in recent years, that has changed tremendously. Every engine has its strengths. Every engine has its vulnerability. Read your manual. If you don't have a manual with it, go online and research that engine. This unit has a Kohler engine. There are those out there with Tecumseh, there's Kawasaki, and there is Honda. And by the way, I found Honda to be an incredibly tough little machine. I told you I lost my last splitter. It hopped off the hitch on the back of my truck. I looked in my rearview mirror and this thing is doing end over rolls, long way. It broke the frame, it tore off, the cylinders were, the hoses were top mounted. It tore all those off. I reached down and pulled the starter on that Honda motor, started right up. So it's incredible. This is a Kohler. The Kohler motor has some idiosyncrasies, which the first day I did not enjoy, but once I learned to manage them, not a problem. I say them, there's only one. Every other Briggs & Stratton engine I've had, you crank it, you run it, you turn it off, you go in the house. You come back the next day, you choke it, you crank it. With the Kohler engine, you must also shut off the fuel source. It has a shut-off. It comes standard with the shut-off, so that's nothing that you have to add. But for some reason, and I don't understand the engineering with this Kohler engine, if you leave that valve open where gas is feeding into the carburetor, it actually leaks into the top of the actual cylinder of the motor. You come out the next day, the first day I used this, I loved it. It fired on the first pull, and still does, by the way, a year later, first or second. But I came back the second day to use it, and I'm thinking, I read in the manual, you should shut off the gas supply. I said, but I'm gonna, I work till late in the day today, come back tomorrow, first thing in the morning. It's set for 12 hours. I could not move the cylinder. It was as if it was locked up. Finally got it through. Sometimes you have to take the spark plug out to allow it to blow out that fuel so that the cylinder can actually move. Once I figured out, when I'm about done, I just go ahead and shut the fuel off, let this thing run itself dry out of the carburetor. I've had zero issues with it ever since. So there's another thing. As this thing indexes forward, keep your hands out of the way. I've done this enough that I know where I can fudge a little bit, but learn the discipline of keeping your hands clear of this thing. As it comes forward, what tends to happen, let me grab a stick of wood here. As this wedge comes through here, as you get more accustomed to it, it's going to open up that piece of wood, and I don't have to let it go all the way forward. I know about where that wood's going to pop. I can start it back and pull it apart. Well, imagine that this wedge is right in here. I had a really big piece of wood on here one day, and edged forward, I heard it pop, so I put it back and put my hand in my thumb in the crack to pull it apart. When the wedge backed out, the wood mousetrapped on me. It closed me up, and I am here to tell you, it was not about to let me go. I had to do some real fast praying and real fast figuring on what to do. Learn, you can work around the equipment, but you've got to learn to do it safely. And one rule of thumb, if you're going to handle this wood, keep your hands behind the wedge. That means I don't reach in front of the wedge to pull it apart. I reach, when the wedge is up here, I reach back here, and if it'll pull apart, that's fine. Because one mistake can be quite painful, and you don't want to be where I was. So this unit is cold. I'm going to put my hand on the muffler there to show you. In fact, I have a rain cover. I just took the rain cover off. I made sure we had gas. I want to show you how good this engine is. There are 3 levers here. The first lever is for my gasoline. I'm going to cut my gasoline on. The middle lever is for my choke. So now I've cut the choke on. I leave the throttle alone. There is an on-off switch here. Make sure the switch is on. One pull. You want that kind of equipment. I was really impressed that I bought this thing last year, used it through my cutting season, and when the cutting season pretty much ended for me, I parked it down here. Here's my little rain cover. I put to keep the worst of the weather off of the engine compartment itself. I don't leave it sitting out, but it's under a shed. Came out the next spring, pulled the cover off, did exactly what you just saw. Put the gas on, the choke on, and it fired first pull. So I'm going to split a couple of pieces of wood just to give you the sense of ease. This machine, which is by Tractor Supply, I'm forgetting the name of this thing here. It's on here somewhere. Country Line, County Line, something like that. This machine, when I researched them, had the fastest cycle time of any of them that listed that statistic. From the time that you hit this lever and it goes forward and back, 11 seconds. Now that sounds like a lot, but if you've used older splitters, you know that you can be 12, 15, 17 seconds depending on the unit. And it's also 25 ton, gives the amount of force that it can put into a wood. Old splitters, they still have electric ones. They're between $100 and $200 depending on where you find them. They will give you about 5 tons of force. All you need to do is use one and realize that isn't as impressive as it sounds. Hydraulics, when they came out, a 10-ton splitter was quite common, and they started bumping up and got to 20 and to 25. With the 25-ton splitter, I have almost been unable to find anything that it wouldn't split. If it wouldn't split it, it would cut it. The exception to that is when you have a tree with 2 or 3 branches, and I'm talking branches, big branches, that come together, sometime a stick of dynamite wouldn't split those things. But when I was swinging a maul or a mallet or an axe, any kind of a splitting manual splitter, there's a lot of wood that I had to let go to waste because it was impossible for me. You would lose far more in the physical toll on your body than you got out of splitting the thing. My former father-in-law used to say before he passed on, that's a holler stick. In other words, you pitched it in the holler and forgot about it and went on. So let me run this thing for a couple of cycles and show you. I've got some oak down here, and I've got some, I believe it's called paradise tree. This stuff, the paradise tree I just cut the other day, the oak was cut just a few weeks ago, so it's still relatively green. And another absolute vital piece of equipment that you're going to need is work gloves. I have large hands, so going to the box stores, the hardware stores, Harbor Freight I've tried, Tractor Supply I've tried. It's rare that I can find a very comfortable glove. Find a good leather glove. They will serve you well, not only for your splitter, but also for your chainsaw, for loading the wood, for moving the wood, for stacking the wood. Why beat up your hands? So a good glove, and you'll see there's a lot of wear. That's what I buy it for. I buy these several at a time. Try to put some neat's foot oil or whatever oil that I have, saddle soap, something like that, to keep them soft. But gloves will save you a lot of trouble in the long run. So let me turn this on again, and we'll see what we can do. With this setup, and this tank looks like it has, I don't know, a gallon, maybe a fraction over a gallon, but it's a pretty small tank. I can typically I can typically smoke through 2 truckloads of wood before I have to refill it. It's a standard 4-cycle engine. I change the oil once a year at the most. Make sure you use good quality oil. The system is sealed. It's just a great unit to have. And I found that once I got the tractor, I just set the carryall right behind me, throw the wood onto there, and that way, with the exception, you know, sometimes you got to drop a piece and work with half of it at a time. I'm able to keep from straining my back with minimal bending over, stooping over, picking up the weight. So use the tools you have and be smart. When I have the carryall full, I go on down the hill, I set some pallets, usually do 2 pallets together, and stack wood of a similar type. So I'll have hardwoods on a pallet, I'll have my softwoods on a separate pallet. And if you're selling wood, an interesting thing you can do, I put very, very, very short wood, which is junk. And the reason I have very short wood is sometimes I find wood online, people who have trees down there say, I need somebody to come get this wood. And sometimes they want to be helpful, so they go out and cut the tree for you. I don't turn down free wood, but sometimes I wish they had let me cut the tree, because I've got wood over here just outside of what you can see that's literally 8 inches long. But when I sell wood, I find it's usually a lady or an elderly person who is trying to save money on their power bill. So they've procured for themselves some kind of wood burning device, a small stove or something. And I've run into this multiple times where my standard piece of wood that I use, that I cut for others, is 16 inches. I advertise 16 to either 18 or 20 inches, but it's standard. Most wood stoves will handle a little bit bigger than that. Most fireplaces will. And I've had people say, well, I've got a small stove, I need small wood. Down there on my pallets, I have a pallet or 2 dedicated to short wood that's in the neighborhood of a foot or shorter. And I can sell wood that is no good otherwise. Well, not a lot of good otherwise. The other thing I'll tell you, if you noticed, I cut my wood, I split my wood pretty small. That's actually a big piece for me. The smaller that you split your wood, it's a little extra work, but I mean, the work is like this. It's nothing strenuous. The smaller you split it, the quicker it dries. And what I have found, the easier it is for me to regulate the temperature inside the house. Now, I don't have one here because I've been splitting wood smaller for a couple of years, but here's one. When I was swinging the mallet, now this is a little big, I might split this one more time and be done, so I'd have quarters. You throw a big quarter, and this is oak, you throw a big quarter of oak into a stove, it not only burns, it lasts a long time, and it burns hot. So if the house got too hot, I had to start opening windows, which I have no problem with. I'd rather be a little warm than being cold. But I have found that by splitting my wood small, I can actually, you learn the artwork of burning wood, and I can actually manage the temperature that I want. So, for example, on a day when it's not cold, it's just cool. Either you got to turn the furnace on or put a jacket on, or I can build a fire with smaller pieces of wood and keep it going at a low rate and manage the temperature inside the house very, very comfortably. Here's the other thing. On another video, I talked to you about a side job of selling bundled wood. I have already cut my wood or split my wood into small enough stacks. When somebody says, hey, I need some bundles, I just go down there, quickly wrap my wood, and I have my bundled wood already prepared for me. So it works well. So it's just some perspective for you. These things are not cheap. So when you're talking investment, I think when I bought this, which was a couple of years ago, I caught it, they had just upped the price on it, but they had not changed the price out on the lot. So the guy said, I'm gonna give it to you at what the price tag says. And I think that was $14.99, that's $1,500. I have already seen Northern Tool, which is popular here. They've got units well over $2,000. They have units with all sorts of extra features. You'll see the wedges. This is just a straight, like an axe shaped wedge. You'll see them with multiple sizes. You can sink a lot of money into features that you may not necessarily need. I envy that multi-cut wedge at times, but most of the time I like, because I split my wood the way I want it, I like having the ability to split one piece of wood at a time. The larger cylinders, 30, 35 ton, that sounds great. This one's 25 ton. It's the biggest one I've ever owned. It's the biggest one I've worked on. And we cut a tree at our church. The first tree I worked this on, I measured a piece of wood laying on the ground. I couldn't pick it up on here. By the way, these things tilt up so that you can do vertical. That piece of wood was 36 inches across, 3 feet. Set this thing up vertical, and when it was a big oak tree, I forget what kind, but when you got to that junction where the branches come together, those are the ones that work hardest. This thing went right through. It would actually squeeze the sap out of the tree, and you could hear the wood groaning, but the wood gave too, and it split. So my point is, if you've got the extra money, you can spend it, but you'll never realize the need in most cases. So, hope this helps you. Bald Guy is going to go to work now, so I'm going to cut the video off. But I hope that you have enjoyed this. If you do, give us a like. If you do, give us a share. Follow the channel, and hopefully that will help others as well. This is Bald Guy saying have a great day.